Hello, wonderful humans, and welcome back to Board Game Dads. My name is Anthony. I am here once again, as usual, with Eric at the Meeples Republic, and a very special guest today, a fellow board game dad. We have Ryan Billingsley of dadsuggest.com. Ryan, welcome, and thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So we're doing another holiday spotlight here. This one in particular is on a day called Read Across America Day. Now, Read Across America is a literacy initiative that's been adopted for many years, actually, and it happens to coincide purposely with the birthday of Dr. Seuss, one of the most famous children's authors around. So normally this holiday is celebrated in sort of combination with Dr. Seuss Day, which is March 2nd, by the way. And if it ever falls on a weekend, they actually move it to the closest observable school day so that it does get to have its place in the school system. That being said, the reason that I brought Ryan on for this particular episode is that he does have a passion for children's literacy. And so, Ryan, you want to tell us a little bit about that initiative and your sort of website on Dad Suggests?
Yeah, sure. So we've had Dad Suggest for about 3 years. This is about just about the end of the third year on Dad Suggests. And the reason I started it is because of, like you said, a passion for kids' books. We're really heavy into picture books and family games. It's the two-headed prong. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a parenting blog. It's not exactly a review site because it's more like recommendations. I only write about things we love as a family. I don't waste my time on things we don't like.
Right.
And sometimes we get into other fatherly things like just fatherly advice and just about raising kids and things. I'm really big onto imagination and empathy. And that's what gets me into kids' books a lot because there's so many lessons in books and it's so important. It's such a powerful tool for building imagination and creativity. And the same thing with family games. So I really wanted to promote families spending time with their kids, reading with their kids, playing with their kids. And that's why we keep coming back to our favorite books and games over and over again. And this is really the perfect holiday because it's my two favorite things: the kids' books, the games combined. This is perfect.
Yeah, I thought you might like that. Last week, Eric and I actually released a video for National Tell a Fairy Tale Day, which is on February 26th. And so we thought this was a great sort of follow-up to that because that was a very narrow focus on one particular genre. We're getting a little bit broader here. So as usual, all of us are going to bring two games to the discussion here. And the premise for this is they had to be based on or inspired by books. Now, this is a children's literacy holiday and awareness day, but we know that books are different for all kinds of age groups. You might have a kid who's reading at a very advanced level, and you might have an adult who might be reading some picture books or graphic novels, right, Eric?
That is right.
We were also talking about how graphic novels sometimes get a bad reputation from some educators, right, on being not real books. Ryan, what do you say to that statement?
Oh, I hate it. Every once in a while you see some teachers, some old school teachers, usually some parents, even heaven forbid some librarians. I hate to hear it, but every once in a while you hear someone say, go get a real book. But that's nuts. That's really nuts. I mean, reading is reading. It really is. How can any kid that falls in love with something and is reading, how can you tell them don't read that book? That's bad form.
Right.
I agree. Especially since Absolutely. It is such a lifelong skill, like you said. I mean, it promotes, reading for the rest of your life, right? But also that creativity and it's certainly something that is very beneficial, even more so in the very younger formative years, right? So Eric and I both have children who are under 2 years old. My son will be two years old in March. Now, Ryan, you have two children, right?
Yes, 8 and 4.
8 and 4. Cool. So in your experience, did you do anything differently in terms of, say, literacy with your second child as an experience from the first one?
We have had the same plan for both kids, actually. It didn't change at all. Our son has fallen deeper in love with graphic novels.
Nice.
But then again, he's 4 years ahead of his sister. But
Right.
but from the very beginning, from day one with our son 8 years ago, we've read like a stack of books every night. This
Awesome.
every single day of his life. Same thing with his sister. So we're sticking with the same plan. It's working so far.
Great.
Nice.
No, that's the plan. Eric and I are trying to start on that path as well. So that's
Yep.
awesome. All right, so let's get into the main topic here and talk about some games. As usual, we do have a couple of honorable mentions. I'm going to do mine real quick. Well, I'll tell you why. So my honorable mention here is the Harry Potter House Cup competition, which is a worker placement game based in the Harry Potter universe. It is an honorable mention for me for a couple of reasons. I've only played it one time, so I do need some more plays under my belt before I get a sort of a fully developed opinion. The other reason is I have a sneaking suspicion that not this game, maybe, but this subject matter may come up from one of my guests later. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that. Eric, what about you? What's an honorable mention you have for today?
So, fantastic game, Ex Libris. Now, it's not necessarily about reading as much as it's about putting books on a shelf in alphabetical order. Great game. And I highly recommend it. I don't know how great, I don't know what the age range is, so I don't know if it's great for kids, but it's definitely an awesome game.
Yeah, that's a fun one for sure.
Yeah.
A lost art of organizing your books.
Right. I mean, it sounds boring, but it's really cool. And they put a lot of flavor text into the books. If you read like the actual names of the books,
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yep, there's some clever titles in there for sure. Ryan, what about you? Have an honorable mention you want to mention real quick?
Yeah, one that my son and I absolutely adore is the Choose Your Own Adventure game. Have you played this? The one, there's two now, I believe, and the one that we played all the day after Christmas. We got it for Christmas maybe 3 years ago. The House of Danger. You remember these old books?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Eric has that game. I've not played it.
It's amazing. We played through the whole thing in one day. It took us like 6 hours. It reads kind of like a book. And it's a lot like reading one of those books, but you're playing too and keeping track of stats and things. It's really fun.
Nice. Yeah, that's we talked about that on episode 2. So I'll pose a question to you real quick, Ryan, that I think I asked Eric back when we first talked about this. So when you were reading these books as a child, we were talking about how, at some point you make that decision, I'm going to go to page 7 or whatever, and you start to flip to that page, and then you notice that there's not a lot of text on that page. That it's a bad ending coming up, right? So did you
chose poorly?
Poorly, exactly.
Yeah.
Ryan,
I chose poorly a lot.
Were you a reader that would go back to just the previous page and take the better choice, or would you cut off your story and go back to the beginning there?
I think the honest answer is I would not go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like an
I didn't want to reread. I wanted a different ending, but I didn't want to start with the same like 40 pages and go like read. I just read this. You know what I mean?
No, but like
I put my thumb in there.
Page.
I'd go back and maybe I'd go back a couple choices, but I didn't want to read like the whole thing again.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially in one sitting, that was kind of a drag.
Yeah, you keep your thumb on the previous page, and you go.
Oh yeah, you gotta keep your thumb in. That's a pro tip.
I was just checking.
Sure.
I was just checking to see.
Yeah, I just
that page was there.
Yeah. Everything looks good now. I'll go back. Cool. All right, so let's get into some major picks here. Eric, what is the first game based on a book or books that you're bringing to the table?
So the first game I want to talk about is called Wonder Woman Challenge of the Amazons. It's a cooperative game, and it's really got a unique cooperative element to the game. Basically, everybody has a couple of cards in front of them that'll allow them to do something, and everybody gets to plan all together based on the cards in front of each person. We're like, oh, we're going to do this plan. I'm going to go here. You're going to go over there. And then once we're done planning, everybody gets like 3 more cards that nobody else can see, and you have to make your decisions about what you're actually going to do. Put your cards down 1, 2, and 3, like your first, second, and third actions. And then once everybody's got their cards all down, we all chose them, then we can talk again. So sometimes you make plans and then you can't follow through on them. Other times you're like, I can't really do anything. And then it turns out that you can do a whole bunch. So it's really cool the way this works out. Now, I know this isn't, a book per se, but it is like we were talking about before, a graphic novel, and I got a whole bunch of Wonder Woman right here, and it's a fantastic read. I can't wait. I got an 18-month-old daughter who's not coming anywhere close to these for a little while until she doesn't have sticky fingers all the time. But I can't wait for her to get old enough that she gets interested in comics, because I'm going to push her towards comics, and and if she doesn't like it, that's fine. But I love it, and I don't understand why she wouldn't. But yeah, that's my first pick, Wonder Woman, based on the comics.
Yeah, you have a formidable stack of comics there to justify that pick for sure. I'll mention real quick, this was a game that was not on my radar whatsoever. I'm not a big DC fan. I don't know much about Wonder Woman. And Eric recommended it to me one day and said, here, it's a pretty good price. I think you're going to like this game. And I grabbed it. And then because we both owned it, we actually played this with our wives together over Zoom. We both had the game set up on our respective tables, and it worked out really well. It was actually easier than I thought it was going to be.
It took a little bit longer than I thought it would.
That was also, we were learning the game.
Right, that's true.
So that was a first play for us. But yeah, glad I got that one. It has some cool miniatures and like Eric said, some unique card play there.
Real quick, Eric, do you know what's the recommended age on that? You think my 8-year-old could play?
It says 10 and up. So
okay,
since you're
usually that means
playing games for a little while, I assume you could probably get them in on this. And I think it because it's also cooperative.
Oh yeah, I like that with the kids.
Yeah. You're able to kind of like guide them towards making good decisions. And so there's 3 different villains that come with the game as well. And so if you find that one villain is a little too difficult or whatever reason, then you can just use the previous one. We've played with Ares, I think, like 95% of the time. I don't think we've played against Circe, or is it Circe or Circe? Whatever. I think it's Circe or Circe, whatever. And we haven't played against her. We haven't played against Cheetah because Ares, we're comfortable with him. We get it. We know what's going to happen when he comes out. And so just to learn the game and play the game, eventually we're going to move forward and fight Cheetah. But it's similar. I don't know if you've played Marvel Champions. Marvel Champions, the first villain, Rhino, it's pretty simple. So every time we get a new character, we fight against Rhino just to check out the character, since we know what the gameplay is going to be like to fight him.
I think Ares should be a stronger villain than Cheetah. Shouldn't you have to go through someone dressed like a cat before you fight the God of War?
It's not necessarily about stronger. It's more about, I guess, complexity in terms of the villain. Like Ares, he comes here, he brings some warriors. I don't know what Cheetah does. She might, there might be a couple extra steps each turn.
Gotcha.
So just,
That's fair. Cool. All right, Ryan, what's your first pick?
I'll start with The Princess Bride.
Nice.
One of my favorite movies, but also a really good book. Really funny and exciting, just like the movie. It was an amazing adaptation of a movie. So this game, I think it might be one of those awesome games that's like a Target exclusive right now still.
I think you might be right.
I've seen it there.
Yeah, I think it's still exclusive to them. Ravensburger putting out these cool games based on movies, usually Target exclusive. It's called the Adventure Book game. And this is cool. It's like there's a book in it. You open up the book and the game board's right in the book. But the really great thing is, as if you're a fan of the book and the movie, there's so many quotes in that whoever made it loves the movie and the book too.
Right.
The quote, it was hilarious to play through. It's like you're watching it or reading it and saying the guy, the guys doing the wedding ceremony. There's one stage where Humperdinck and Buttercup are like walking down the aisle, and each one has like another line from his from the wedding ceremony, and it's like you can say this stuff out loud while you're playing. If it's lots of inside jokes, it's really fun. So
yeah, that definitely increases the enjoyability of this game overall.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I've had my eye on this one for a little while, and I'm glad to finally hear somebody talk about it, because I don't know anything about the game.
So I'll tell you how it goes. Kind of. So there's 6 chapters, and the way it works is everyone gets cards. It's a cooperative game, which is awesome for the family. I love it. Our 8-year-old can play with us. but he hasn't seen the movie yet, so I'm a little. He didn't finish all 6 chapters with us. I'm wondering if I should do spoilers with him or not. But my wife and I finished the game. So there's it's broken up into 6 chapters. The major stuff like the fire swamp and the storming the castle and stuff like that. And you're basically playing through the movie, playing through the story of the movie, and you're trying to do certain challenges based on. Like Wesley and Buttercup need to be on the same square, and then you need to be able to discard these cards, that kind of thing. So you're working together. You can trade cards. You can move your character on the board, avoiding the dangers. And each chapter has a different way you can lose. There's a really funny mechanic where, Fred Savage, the kid, and his granddad that's reading to him. If you mess up, like he gets distracted. He goes back to his video games.
Oh, that's funny.
It's funny, yeah.
Huh.
So it's a great game. I definitely recommend it, especially if you're a fan.
Yeah, it sounds like they put a lot of effort into that. Like you said, it's great when somebody creates a game based on an IP like that and they're fans of it. I mean, that's the ideal, right? Because they're going to do right by it. And having those quotes sounds awesome. I mean, as you were describing the mechanics, there was like 3 or 4 that just popped out, and I had to restrain myself from not saying them out loud.
Right, exactly.
So now that you've played through the whole game, you've played all 6 chapters, can you go back and play it again? It's still going to be as fun, or are there kind of like spoilers that, well, maybe wait a few years until we've forgotten some of the things in the game?
It's not necessarily spoilers. It's more like because you know how the story ends, right? So it's kind of like more like whether or not you're going to get lucky enough to win a little bit. There's skill and there's luck. There's lots of planning. So it's not that anything will be spoiled. It's just, do you want to play? It's almost like watching the movie again. Do you want to play through it again?
Right.
Cool. Mm-hmm. All right, so my first pick. Now, I know we said we weren't going to necessarily show the games on camera. I'm making one exception for this game in particular because it comes in a box that is shaped like a book. So this is the Hair and Tortoise. This is one of the games in the Tales and Games series from Yellow. I believe there's 8 or 9 of them right now. I've only played this one. I had heard from some reviewers years ago that this was the best one. That's been a while. There's been some that have come out since then, so I can't speak to the other ones. But this one is great. So it's based on the fable or folktale, however you want to call it. And the premise here is that there's a sort of a rematch, and some of the other classic characters from these stories want in on this race too. So you have Hare and the Tortoise. You also have a lamb and a fox and a wolf. So you have 5 racers. This is a racing game where you're betting on who's going to get in first, second, or third place. So at the beginning of the game, you'll get 1 betting card that nobody knows about face down, and then you can kind of choose a second one to keep. You can keep 2 of the same character if you want. You want to put all your money on Tortoise to win the whole thing. If not, you diversify a little bit, pick 2 characters, and if that's the case, you're trying to ideally get first and second. The cool thing about this is that it's a racing game, and nobody is controlling just one character. The characters will move based on the cards that get played. So you'll have a hand of cards that just have these characters on them, and you'll take turns playing them out to the center of the table. If you ever get to 8 cards total that are played, you trigger the racing part. Or if there's ever 4 cards played of the same character, you trigger the racing part. And every character moves in a different way. The hare will always move 2 spaces. The lamb always moves, I forget, 2 spaces plus something, but he has to stop it every time there's water to get a drink. So he slows down a little bit. There's a card you can play with the wolf that he makes this big howling sound and all the animals get scared. And so only he moves. So there's all these different ways to mitigate how these characters are moving around. And you can kind of, because of the card play, if you don't want someone to move because you don't have them, you can kind of keep them in check for a little bit. And then at some points you have no choice and they're going to have to move. So a very unique type of racing here. Not a whole lot of heavy strategy, but enough to make it fun. Highly recommend this. I've played it only with 2 players and it's enjoyable at 2. So I can only imagine that at a higher player count, this one would actually be more fun.
Now, I haven't played this game, and I haven't played a lot of racing games, but I've heard, I believe Camel Up or Camel Cup, I'm not really sure. I think it's Camel Up. And also Unicorn Fever.
Mhm.
Both have that kind of, you're racing, but really you're betting on the racer
Right.
kind of feel to them. And I haven't played that, and it sounds really interesting. And I can't wait to get my hands on a game that feels like that, because I was excited about Horse Fever. I never got it, but it was when I was doing my research, the most popular game about horses.
Right.
And then they just re-implemented that into Unicorn Fever. So now it's all right. I got a daughter. She's gonna love unicorns one of these days. This will be a great game. So I'm definitely gonna check out probably Unicorn Fever.
Cool.
But since you have Hair and Tortoise, give that a go first.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what some of these other ones play like, to be honest. It does come with some great components too. There's wooden racers for all the characters. You make your own track. The track's modular, so you can kind of vary how the racetrack looks. It even has the 1, 2, and 3 pedestal thing for you to put the little people on at the end of the race.
I can vouch for that game. I can vouch for the fact that my daughter just had a birthday and it was unicorn themed.
Nice.
I have 2 of those yellow games. The other one we have is the 3 Little Pigs.
Oh, okay.
And here's one cool thing is when we opened the Tortoise and the Hare, there inside was a special card. I don't know if yours had this too, for the 3 Little Pigs. And I was like, whoa, that's the other one we got. That's awesome. So you can put that in the other game.
Nice.
It's a little promo card. And I didn't know what it meant because I never played 3 Little Pigs. Of course, I'm going to try to find it now and won't be able to.
It's a great family game for sure. All 4 of us can play it together. Our 4-year-old almost won.
Nice.
She played through it. You can bet on 2. You can bet on 2 of the animals, but she was just focusing on 1. I think she almost won the game. She's at 4, so it's a great family game.
All right, Eric, what's your second game getting to the table today?
All right, so the second game I want to talk about is called Tales of the Arabian Nights, and the game itself is almost like a book, right? Because you're playing and you go somewhere, you draw a card, and depending on the symbol of the space that you're at, somebody's gonna read you a different passage based on the card, and then they read that to you, and then you have your own kind of like way to respond. So let's say you come across an elderly gypsy. And now, how do you want to react to this elderly gypsy? Do you want to help her? Do you want to beat her? Do you want to aid her? Do you want to feed her? Like all these different ways to respond. And then you choose one, and then the other person takes the book and they find another passage. I think it's actually a completely different book. And then they read the story, like what happens when you rob this elderly gypsy. And you can do the same thing. You can, every time you come across somebody, I'm going to rob them. Oh, I'm going to rob them. And it could be good. It could be bad. It's not like there's any rhyme or reason to some of the choices in this. So it's just every time you play, it's this unique and interesting experience. Now, this game is based on, it's called Arabian Nights. I think it's also called 1001 Nights. And I believe, and I'm going to quote Ryan on this one, who in turn quoted Bugs Bunny. I believe that the premise of this story is that there's a guy and he's on like a death sentence, but every night he tells a story. And so it just kind of prolongs his life until the end. I haven't read the book. I really couldn't tell you if that's true or accurate. It sounds pretty true.
When has Bugs Bunny ever lied to us? I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
That is wrong.
Fantastic game. Have you guys had the chance to play this?
I've only played this once with you, and it was enjoyable. Yeah,
I need to look
very
it up.
rich storytelling, and to your point, Eric, you can't. There's really no wrong or right answer. You might rob someone one time and it turns out really bad for you, and you go to jail. You might rob somebody else and they had like so much money, and now you're rich and famous, and that's a good thing.
Or you rob somebody, it turns out they were a terrible person, and then everybody cheers for you. That it's just like, really? I was just trying to be a jerk, and now I'm a hero.
I'll take it. I would imagine a fair amount of replayability for that reason, right? You're not going to get a lot of repetition in this one for sure.
The one thing I will say that if you're not prepared to sit down and read a lot during the course of the game, hold off on this one. Wait until if you're looking for a quick game, pick something else.
Yeah, for sure. You're going to spend some time at the table with this one.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of spending time at the table, Ryan, what is another game that you and your family likes to get out?
So this next one has been an event for like a whole year. I just did a featured article on it and it's Hogwarts Battle from the OP. And it is, just like the last game I talked about. If you're a fan of the book, this is so much fun. It's split into 7 chapters, just like the 7 books of the series. And the creators just did an amazing job of fan service here. The villains, the characters, the items that you can buy in the store, it's all based on which book you're on. So there's no spoilers as long as you've read up to that chapter, and which is why we just a month ago we finished the last book with our 8-year-old.
Nice.
And so this is what we did. This was a lot of fun. So we read the first book, and then what we would do is we would watch the movie together as a family. Then we got out the Lego Harry Potter video game, and then we'd play through to that split into 7 chapters too. They put in 2 games, but you could play to the end of the book and then stop. We don't want spoilers, and then we would go to Hogwarts Battle and we would play the next chapter in that game, and then we would go to the next book. It was a lot, and it took all year.
That's awesome.
It's been a lot of fun. So this game is a deck building game. So unlike like Magic the Gathering, where you build your deck beforehand, in this game you build your deck during the game by buying cards from the store, and you can change your strategy and say, I want more cards that can heal, I want more cards that can do damage, and you buy them during your turn, and then your deck gets bigger, and you have teammates, cooperative, which is great for the family. Once again, that's pretty much all we do. We love cooperative games.
Absolutely.
So there's Death Eaters, there's villains from the game, and you're trying to defeat them before they take over territories, and you play as the main characters. And we always do the same thing as the family. Our son insists on being Harry. I'm always Ron, and my wife is always Hermione. And our 4-year-old can't get into it yet, but one day she'll be Neville or Luna. The expansion lets you play as Luna.
Yep.
And so each chapter adds new mechanics. It gets a little harder, and they add new mechanics to play. Like they introduce dice, they introduce new things to the store all the time. They introduce new villains. So by the end, you have to face a whole stack of villains and beat Voldemort at the very end. And then the last chapter throws in Horcruxes you have to take care of too. It's really well done.
I don't like.
And then there's expansions too.
So I just want to throw this in. I hate to step on your toes on this one, but this is one of the only games where we actually house rule, and we don't play with Bellatrix Lestrange anymore. Her card comes right out of the game and gets put in the side of the box, because every time we play, she comes out like in the first round where we can't do anything. We can't beat her, right? We don't have any attacks or anything. And she just, I think she makes you do 2 of those, what are those little things with the really cool looking metal pieces?
A dark arts mark? Is that dark mark? Is that right?
No, there's the dark arts cards.
Right.
The little
dark
metal
mark.
Dark mark?
Is that what it's called?
I don't know. Those things. She brings out 2 of them, and we're just, oh man, can't stand her. So that card comes right out.
That's we came up with the house rule too. But the funny thing is it was like chapter 2 or 3, like it should still be easy, and we kept losing over and over again. It's like, what's going on? I guess we didn't have a lot of practice yet, but we're like, why do we keep losing? It's because these stupid cards keep showing up in the store. Like no one wants to buy.
Yeah.
no one wants to buy that. And then we went to the internet. We looked it up. It's like, why do I keep losing? We don't want to buy these cards in the store. And people were like, well, we've come up with a rule where you can re-roll the store. You can pay something to re-roll the store. And we're like, okay, sure, we'll pay 4 coins to re-roll the store.
Nice.
And then after that, we like never lost again. We never had to use the rule.
That's an airtight strategy. Just alter the game until you win. I like it.
No. It's what I mean is we never had to use the rule. After that, we never lost again, and we never even had to use the rule. It's like, what happened? We didn't have to use our house rule.
We've come across it where, especially real early in the game, all the cards that are out cost 5 or 6. I mean, we don't have 5 or 6, so then we'll do that and we'll reset the whole thing. Yeah.
It's awesome, Ryan, that you did that whole thing with the movies and the books and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Like a great family
And the
activity.
video games.
And the video game, right?
Yeah.
And if you can get a year's worth of entertainment for your kids out of that, then good job. Awesome. So, yeah, now you know why my honorable mention was what it was. I have played this game, though. I did enjoy it for sure. Love deck building in general.
Right.
So I've got one final game to talk about today, and it is based on a very classic story. Definitely not a younger person story, but once your kid is in middle school or high school, they're probably going to get exposed to this, and that's Romeo and Juliet. Okay, a classic tale that has been reiterated in probably some Bugs Bunny cartoons or many other forms,
definitely
right?
some Bugs Bunny.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a classic. The game I'm talking about is called Council of Verona. It's a real small card game. Comes in a little magnetic box, which I love. And in this game, you're really just playing. All the cards are characters from the play, and you're just playing cards down to either the council section or the exile section. Some of the characters that you're playing have a special ability. It might let you move someone or take an extra card or something like that. But some of them have an agenda, and that's how you're going to score points in this game. So, for example, you have Lord Capulet. His agenda is, at the end of the game, there needs to be more Capulets than Montagues on the council. Romeo and Juliet both have an agenda that they need to be in the same space at the end of the game, whether it's exile or council. And everyone has a little bit of a different one. So you're not controlling any character per se, but as you're playing them down, you're going to be trying to influence that and make sure that agenda gets met. In addition to that, you're also playing these tokens that are worth points on these different characters. So again, going back to the Lord Capulet example, if I played him and I look at I picked him because in my hand, I've got, 4 out of 5 of my cards are Capulets. I want to get that majority. I can also bet essentially points on him. At the end of the game, if his agenda was met, the points will be revealed, and whoever has the most points is going to be the winner. It's got some planning that either comes to fruition wonderfully or goes right out the window, depending on what your opponents play. I also have a really small expansion called the Poison expansion, which adds 2 of those tokens are poison and antidote. And so then you can poison certain characters. So again, if you didn't want Lord Capulet to get that majority on the council, maybe you poison him. Maybe your opponent guessed that you poisoned him and put the antidote on him. Maybe someone's ability lets you switch tokens and all of a sudden you've poisoned the nurse instead. It's chaotic. Really fun though. Artwork is great. A great, I would say, supplement to the play. Ryan, now that you've mentioned what you did with your family for Harry Potter, this would be a cool, sort of side project to do even in a classroom or something with this game.
Oh yeah.
Because you have some social deduction going on, player interaction, and the agendas on those characters make sense to the point where there's even some that are, as the nurse and the priest are neutral characters where they sort of count as both, families for sake of the argument. So it's pretty cool. Little game, great artwork on this. Highly recommend it. That's Council of Verona, based on Romeo and Juliet.
Nice.
That sounds awesome. That's a great point too. I love. There's so many of these great games should be brought into the classroom.
Yeah, there's certainly a place for it, and like I said before, and you mentioned it too, Ryan. A lot of these publishing companies and designers are now making games based on these IPs of movies and books, but they're doing it really, really well, right?
Yeah.
The Back to the Future game and The Shining and The Princess Bride, these are things that if these games were made, 20 years ago, they would be on Target shelves, but they would probably be like, Princess Bride, spin the Inconceivable game or whatever, and it's like, okay.
Oh yeah.
So
They still make some of those too.
Oh yeah, for sure. So part of our job as board game dad ambassadors is to make sure that we steer you in the right direction towards those projects that are really nice, chock full of good content.
And we'll help you filter through the garbage.
That's right. That's right. That's our new tagline. Helping you filter through garbage since 2020.
All right.
All right, gentlemen. Do we have any closing remarks, Eric or Ryan? Anything you would like to add to our discussion here about Read Across America Day?
Similar to National Tell a Fairy Tale Day, I just would love to reiterate, read to your kids. That's it.
Yep. Read to them, no matter how young they are. Even if they can't speak back, they're going to be absorbing those words, and it does magic for sure. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. I would encourage you to check out Ryan's website, dadsuggest.com. And again, as you said before, it's not a review site. Otherwise, it would be called dadreviews.com. It's a suggestion site. So things that he knows works for books, movies, games, plethora of information there. So go check that out. Check out Eric's account on Instagram at the Meeples Republic for some fantastic board game photography. And as always, I would encourage you to give a thumbs up to this particular video and perhaps even subscribe to the channel Board Game Dads. That's it for today, folks. I'd like to thank Eric and Ryan once again, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks for having me.